Hello everybody, this is the Carpet Guy. You can see my contact information right down here, my email address, my phone number. If you want my company information, it's Like New Cleaning. We are going to be dealing with something this evening that is near and dear to many homeowners' hearts. And unfortunately, it is a little bit gross and disgusting, so I'm going to give you the warning right now. We are dealing with some throw up. As the Carpet Guy calls it, it's a technical term that we use with Like New Cleaning, yakamitis. Let's first talk about, and you'll see me carrying this card around because it's actually my script. We're going to look at our cast of characters. These are the things we're going to be using to get rid of our throw up or yakamitis, which I'll probably be referring it to throughout the video. A large spoon, a spatula, a bowl. This is an empty water jug. You can see there's nothing in here. We'll show you a little bit. We'll fill that up for you here in just a little bit. This is going to be part of my follow-up to full water jugs and a white towel. Now we get to the star of the show, and once again, if you have a weak stomach, this is the part you do not want to watch. But now we're going to get to our cast, our star of the show, the lovely yakamitis. We just had a puke situation here, and of course, if you were at anybody else's house, you would just go ahead and work on cleaning it up. At the Carpet Guy's house, we had to write a script. So we're going to talk about it. First, we're going to introduce some of our other cast of characters, which have already signed the waiver that they're not going to sue me later or be all bummed out when they're 18 years old and someone brings this video to their college, their high school graduation, and they show their puking. This particular gentleman right here in front of us is obviously carrying a bucket for a specific reason, because he is the source of our yakamitis. So I'm going to pass the camera on. This is an old beat up one. I actually got this out of a dumpster because it didn't have a hose on it. But you'll see I have the paper filter removed. I just have the foam filter that is on this, and that's how they're set up to do wet extraction. I recommend all of my clients to have one of these just for wet extractions. Obviously, you could there's a paper sleeve that'll slide up over top of this, and if you extract water with it, it just eats up that paper sleeve and it goes away. Well, let me tell you the reason why I like the shop vac. You see this item right here where this big basket is in this tube, and then this part right up here on the top? This is generally referred to as a vacuum, as a squirrel cage. Oh, we're going to get a close-up of that. This item is designed to do one thing and one thing only. This is where it exhausts, but inside here is a very large blower basket. The only thing a shop vac is designed to do is suck. And in my particular business, that is a technical term. The reason why we need some extra horsepower here, and why I do not recommend general spot removal items, there's a variety of different name brands and stuff that are available as far as carpet extraction tools, is simply just because they do not suck enough. Now let's think about our pukamitis here. I know it's gross, but what we're dealing with is we have a bunch of liquid type stuff on a carpet. Now carpet is very, very absorbent. There's a lot of fiber that's involved. It's also laying on a horizontal plane. So we have gravity working against us, and we also have absorbency working against us. So we need the extra horsepower that's involved with this particular item, a wet dry vac, as I'll refer to it from now on out. This is the part where we fill up the water. I don't want you to think that I'm using some kind of special stuff. So my assistant here is going to head to the sink, and I'm going to follow her. So you don't think that I'm using any kind of special, super incredible Carpet Guy magic juice. So you can see this jug is being filled with nothing but ordinary, right from the tap, available to anybody on the face of the planet, tap water. And that's exactly what we want to use and all we want to use. We got about a half a gallon in there. That's good enough because we're already at 5 minutes. So we'll follow this water jug back into our area that we're dealing with. So we now have our jug in place, and I'm going to pass the camera along. I'm going to have to sit over here so I'm not in the shadow. First of all, I got a bunch of stuff sitting on the carpet. So now back to my tools. These are absolutely amazing tools, and by the way, I recommend that you breathe out of your mouth when you're doing this so you don't get all grossed out and smelling all the yuck. But you can see with this particular tool, a lot of this stuff is just sitting right on the surface of the carpet. That's exactly where I want it to stay. So with this, I can actually dig down in. You can see where some of the liquid is. I can actually dig down into the carpet, and I'll switch to the spatula here in just a second. I didn't actually get all of the tools that I wanted. A good sturdy metal spoon would work well. but you can see I'm actually getting a significant amount of the liquid that's out of that simply by using the spoon as a spatula to scrape up a bunch of that crud. Now, I do want to make a note about colored stains. Very oftentimes, these type of stains occur because we're dealing with someone who's not feeling well with taking some medicines. Many of the liquid medications that children take are colored. If you have a colored situation, a colored stain, that color is going to take in that carpet. You can see some of the liquid that's coming out of there. I'm just going to continue to scrape that out with this spoon because this is going to be the most effective way. I'm actually pushing it out of the fibers and scooping it up into my bowl. Now you can see in this particular case I'm not dealing with any kind of colors in my stuff or in my stain. So we've got that pretty much handled. So as you can see, what we're dealing with right here is not really anything that's, I don't have any stains or what have you. Now I'm going ahead to ask my assistants to go ahead and turn on my shop vac and shut the door at the same time. So we're going to turn my shop vac on. There we go. I'm sure you can hear that. So I've got a little bit of reduced vacuum here, but now I'm going to go back to my jug of water. I'm going to put that right on the spot, and you'll actually see where the water's soaking in on the sides where nothing really was. Now, one of the questions that always comes up when I do these is, what do you do about the smell? Because obviously you're not here, but you can just imagine that this is not exactly the most pleasant smelling situation. And my response to that always is, if you get out all of the stuff, then you don't really have any reason to apply any type of a deodorizer. But if you do need some, and there's always going to be some residual lingering odors, there's many products that are available naturally, or at your grocery store. Don't like to name specific products, but anybody who's out there who's ever tried to deodorize something. Now you'll notice I keep going back and forth over this. Again, I want this extraction to go ahead and pull as much of this out of the carpet as is humanly possible. And again, the reason why I like the shop vac. If you go back to that squirrel cage that I showed you just a couple of minutes ago, and actually you'll notice if I set that down, I don't know how well you can see that in the video, but you can see how it actually starts pulling the water from the other parts. I am a racer. I do like to race motorcycles and cars, but I'm not necessarily a gearhead into thinking that horsepower is the answer to everything. But it is the answer to some things.
10.
Now,
10 seconds.
So I'm just about done to the end of my 10 minutes here. Now we're going to finish up with the final stages of this. Now I've got an area that's all wet. Notice I'm not touching this. In order to keep this from wicking back and coming back, notice I'm using just a plain white towel. All I'm going to do from here is I'm just going to weight this. I'm going to use 2 empty, I already introduced these to you a little bit earlier, water jugs. They'll weigh about 8 pounds apiece. Gallon of water weighs about 8 pounds. And I'm just going to weight those, so while this dries, it'll actually come up. Pull up to me here, we already saw this. This is pretty much the simplest and most effective way. And again, we're dealing with a kind of a gross thing, but this will handle just about any kind of a throw-up, spill, just about anything that'll happen. Simple flush, simple rinse. You can do this at home. It's pretty simple. Thanks for joining in. Jeez, all of a sudden I'm out of words. Thanks for joining the Carpet Guy on the Yakimitis, and hopefully this works for you at home. I love my little shop vac. This isn't actually my original one. I've had several of them. The first one that I had, in the middle of the winter, I kept smelling something in my van for, round about probably close to a month. And, it was cold. I live in northeastern Ohio. I mean, we're talking like 10, 20 degrees, freezing cold. This stink in my van continues to get worse. And it was because I took my little wet dry vac, and I forgot that I had cleaned chocolate milk with it because I didn't want to drag a couple hundred feet of hose into a big house. So the cleanup is very, very critical. Now, you won't have the same problem that I'm going to have in that I now have myself a big long piece of 15-foot hose. So here's what you want to do. After you get done using the shop vac, you want to make sure And again, your hose isn't going to be anywhere near as long as mine, and I'm not going to really get heavily into demonstrating this, but I will do it later. I'm actually going to do it outside with the hose. But you're going to want to make sure that you introduce water and rinse out that hose. Now again, your hose is not going to be as long as mine is. I'm just using that again so I can keep that shop vac out of my way. So you want to make sure you run some water through and you rinse out your hose. And then the secondary part, obviously you'll want to dump the tank into the toilet, but through this foam filter, you have now introduced all that stuff. So you want to make sure you rinse that out very, very well before you store it. And I'm going to show you real quick here how I like to store mine after I've used it. Again, it's just a nice soft piece of foam. You can just rinse it out, and there'll be a bunch of yuck in there because I do sometimes use mine to suck out dust and dirt, even though I don't have a paper filter on it. You want to make sure you rinse that filter out very, very completely. You can even stick that part underneath there and rinse out the ball and the plastic and whatnot. Again, it's a wet dry vac. A little bit of water is not going to hurt it as long as I don't pour that water up into the hose, or up into the motor, I'm sorry. And obviously I don't think I have to explain to you how to clean out the tank part. That's pretty self-explanatory. You want to make sure you dump that out. What I like to do with mine when I store it is I'll put this paper filter, or this foam filter, not completely all the way back on. And when I store it, where I store it, I like to store it like this, just so it dries. So if there is any nasty stuff still stuck in this filter, obviously it's almost impossible to get that completely cleaned out. But that'll make sure, because if you do it underneath, if you think about this, where does mold and nasty stuff grow? It grows in a dark environment. So with it sitting up like this, I mean, obviously, even if I put this in a closet, this is going to allow the foam filter to dry, and that's very, very important when you do really nasty stuff like this, because you're going to suck up a lot of organic material, and if you store it sealed up like it's supposed to be, it's obviously going to smell really gross. This is the Carpet Guy, Like New Cleaning. Hopefully this will help you, and again, this particular process is going to help you with any type of a liquid spill. This will work for pop or soda or any kind of a spill. It'll work for, we were dealing with Yakimatus earlier. It'll obviously work with anything that comes out of the other end, which I don't think I need to get into too descriptive for you. It'll work for a coffee spill. Many, many times a throw-up stain will involve some color, because a lot of times when our kids are sick, or even us, we take some type of a medicine that has a color in it. A lot of animal-related stains, especially cats, because their food is heavily dyed. I want you to understand that as soon as that dye hits the carpet, if it is a post-dyed nylon fiber, or a variety, actually other fibers will absorb, or actually they'll adsorb the colors. If you have a colored stain, that's something you're most likely going to need a professional for. That color will instantly be dyed into the fibers. When you mix the stomach acids with the dye, you actually mimic the dyeing process of the carpet. Carpet is dyed in the acid state. The carpets are or the dyes are acids. Well, it's an acid dye bath that they use to color the carpets. So if you have a colored stain, you are not going to be able to get that part of it removed. No matter what you do, no matter how much you work on it, those colors are something that you're going to need a professional for. You want to seek out a professional that has a lot of experience with those types of dyes. You're not going to necessarily just find that with your average carpet guy. Dealing with colored stains, again, it's not rocket science, but there are some certain specific things that you are going to need. So once again, to sum this all up, shop vac, water, spoon, bowl will handle just about any kind of a liquid spill. We dealt with something a little bit gross today. Make sure you follow up and prep your tools, or follow up and clean up your tools after you've prepped them all and got them ready. And on that note, I do want to talk about the number one chemical that ruins carpet. It's adrenaline. It's not anything else. Well, actually what happens is we get something on our carpet and we freak out and we immediately run and grab the first thing that we can possibly think of. I've seen all kinds of bleaching related products. Whatever happened to your carpet, a simple, calm approach, usually water, blotting it up with a towel or a spoon. In this particular case, you saw in part one where we scooped all the stuff out of there. That'll work on a lot of different things, even a coffee spill or a pop spill. You can scoop a lot of it out there with a nice big serving spoon. Then if you need to, you can follow that up again. If you're having a party, I got my shop vac out today, my wet dry vac, sorry. You could also just put heavy, blot that area if you cared to, if there were people around, or just leave it alone, because whatever's happened to the carpet has already happened, and whatever, you'll have to deal with it later, but whatever's been done is been done. But remember, doing the wrong thing quickly is not going to solve the problem. So I'm going to sign off. This is part 2. Thanks for joining us. Once again, it's the Carpet Guy, Like New Cleaning. You've got my information in the beginning of part 1. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.